Good morning, everyone. And as I've been going around from what I call Z to A, Zeeland to Allendale and Grand Rapids and around with the provost, we'll say and start off with a Happy New Year. But it is indeed a good morning as I do greet many of my staff. I say it's a great day in the neighborhood, with my apologies to Fred Rogers and WGV, WGVU radio and TV and everything else, okay? So they start the same way. But really it is a good morning to be welcoming back returning faculty, our staff that has been working very diligently, as you can see, in our neighborhood. It has been transformed this summer. We also are welcoming, of course, the class of 2012 here, and I do know that they're bright-eyed and ready and raring to go too. And I do appreciate those two parts of our neighborhood, our students and our faculty, and the increased capacity we have with our bricks and sticks. And you can just see it. It's great. In fact, when I was talking to many of the students, they, as we know, do have choices. And they have chosen us as their university. And they're very, very proud, as I'll mention a couple of stories here in a second. So let me start off just with that. A couple of quick stories. It was just a few weeks ago, I was over in Oakland, and I met a CEO. At the time, he was coming up from St. Louis, meeting with others in the Oakland area there in the banking industry. And as my daughter would say, I do represent. So on my shirt, of course, I had Grand Valley State University, big GV. And he says, I've heard lots about that school from some of the folks here that I work with. They have their sons and daughters going to Grand Valley. I hear lots about Grand Valley State University. And here this gentleman's from St. Louis. He's coming on up, and he's hearing about our university. And he said, yeah, it's great. And similar, like we started last year, he said, what do you do? I said, well, I'm the president. And he said, well, you should be very, very proud. And this is what he said, of the academic excellence in the championship athletics that the people that I get to work with here in this area of Michigan kind of brag about, if they know about Grand Valley State University. And then just last weekend, Marcia and I were up north, and we saw a young lady who saw that we were from Grand Valley State University, and she said, wow, this is great. Get to meet T. Haas. I said, yeah, that's good. That's who I am, along with M. Haas. And she said, I just need to tell you a story. She said, I am so glad about my choice to be at Grand Valley State University. She said, I was able to go to university for about a year in the east side of the state, but I wasn't getting what I wanted. So I'm in the health professions, and I saw on the website when I went through, and I saw Grand Valley having a program in health sciences, and I've been there for 2 years. I have made, it was wonderful. I made a good decision to come to Grand Valley. And then she went on, she said, the faculty care about me, the staff cares about me. Time and again, coming back to that, as I've been talking about for 2 years now, that sense of intimacy that we see at Grand Valley State University. Pretty neat. But one last quick story. I was helping some students and their families move into Robinson on on Wednesday morning, actually. And I'm helping, I learned this year not to carry refrigerators. I know that, and that was fine. So bedding was good. But there was a family in one of the rooms in Robinson. They had the son and the mom, who's making a bed, by the way, and the dad. And the dad said, you're the president. I said, yep, I'm Tom. He said, well, Tom, he said, you know, during orientation, we thought we made a good decision, and the son's there kind of smiling, too. Mom's still making the bed. But she looked up and she started smiling too. She said, but Tom, we didn't make a good decision. We made a great decision. Good to great. Isn't that great? That is wonderful. And I hear that time and again. Good to great. And Grand Valley State University is great. It's a special place, I think, at a very special time. So welcome faculty and staff, new faculty and staff that are here. And I do want to recognize the board members that are joining us today. We have Kate in the back. Kate Pugh Walters. And we have Lucille, our chair, Lucille Taylor. Donna Brooks. And Dottie Johnson. Well, let me start off, though, with two words. And I'm going to get into some other type of achievements from last year and a look ahead. And then at the end of it, leave some time for some questions and answers. But I'll leave you with, I'll start off and I'll leave the same way, North Central. Everyone know that? North Central. In October, we will have our decennial visit by colleagues from across this region. And I'm thrilled about the work. And I want to start off by recognizing Julie. Julie, are you here? Julie, please stand up and be recognized for your work with the self-study and the representing the team. So we're working, we're ready and raring to go, and I'll finish off with a couple of comments about that. And also, I'm taking a risk, but I need to do it anyway. As you know, we have completed a number of projects over the last 18 months, and I appreciate the board's leadership and support on this. On time, on budget. James Moyer, please stand up and be recognized. It is a pretty exciting place to be, a special place at a special time. I'm going to just go through some highlights of what I have put together for everyone who's not here and those that want to read this later on in the afternoon or maybe first thing on Monday. We'll put an entire text of what I want to share with the entire Grand Valley community. But I wanted to really say this, that I did have some goals that I set up with the board last year. And I just wanted to share with you some of the highlights with you. I do want to spend a little bit more time on strategic planning, but to highlight some of the achievements that we've had together. And that was in the context of a great balance, reputation, and the state support that we do get. But I do have to start off with one additional item. This was I woke up, and Marcia knows it was about 3:45 this morning, and she said, "Get out of here." And so about 5 o'clock, with my cup of coffee, I got the Detroit Free Press. And at least it was below in local news, below the fold, statewide, Michigan colleges tabbed as up-and-coming schools. U.S. News & World Report annual college ranking has a new category for up-and-coming schools. The category, based upon surveys of presidents and provosts and other academic leaders, recognize schools with innovations focused on improving school performance. Grand Valley State University is tied for the top spot for the master's program in the Midwest. Top spot. Innovation, performance. Wow, isn't that great? Good to great, one more time. And I sure do appreciate what we've been able to do together. In terms of some of my goals, University leadership, fiscal responsibilities, community relations and development, service and strategic planning were the ones that I shared with the board that I wanted to work upon. And this was not my work, but the work as we do collectively together. And just a couple of highlights. In terms of leadership, I appreciated all the support that I received with getting virtual office hours up and running so that we can have access to the president's office. Really enjoyed with the provost having our coffee with the faculty a couple of times each semester. In terms of university leadership, going to Lansing with Matt on numerous times. And I put over almost 42,000 miles in my car in 2 years. Most of the time going back and forth to Lansing, trying to help our representatives do their job. But that's another story for another time. And roadway between here and Lansing will also get a little bit more traction, I guess you'd say, with my responsibilities and election as the chair of the President's Council for the next 2 years. But again, and thank you. But really, 3 highlights in terms of leadership. And the self-study, we already asked Julie to stand, but it was the connection between the self-study and the strategic plan that I took particular ownership of over these last 2 years, in particular last year, and I'm very, very pleased with the result of that. Very, very pleased with the relationships we're developing with our community colleges, both in Grand Rapids and Muskegon, and utilizing in Holland, the Holland campus, the Meyer Holland campus, and also working with Muskegon to bring Grand Valley to those working adults who need the ability as represented in a 4-year degree from Grand Valley State University. We have a great business plan, and I think it's going to reap us great benefits along the lakeshore. And then finally, in terms of leadership, is our work together in our comprehensive campaign. Back in June, Mary Beth, right, it was at the enrichment dinner, where we announced a comprehensive campaign, a new model for what we are embarking upon to engage a broadening base for this university and supporting the great things that we do and into the future. And I am very, very pleased that we were able to report out that in a relatively short period of time, about 18 months since we conceived of the concept, that we're over halfway there to a $50 million goal. That's wonderful. We've gotten great support from our partners in the community. Each member of the board has pledged. Marcia and I are going to support the library, the senior management team as well. So I'm thrilled with the progress we're making there. In terms of fiscal responsibility, I joined the board in a fiduciary responsibility for this university. And I do think that we need to do that in the context of strategic planning. But you use a budget to enable the strategic plan. And I think that with Jim and Gail and others, they understand now what I was trying to get through to them just a few short years ago. And that we are now using the plan and the budgeting process for priorities. And that's important. We want to be as effective and efficient with all the resources we have and be accountable to that. We also have engaged James and others in a master facility planning completion. We've already seen that. But a couple of key points. And I think our performance, as listed in the paper today as innovation, I think really is founded on a number of things, but one in particular, our accountability report that we provided to the board last October. And we're going to update it again for this October. I appreciate Matt's work in that regard, and others too, bringing that all together for us. What I call the good, bad, ugly of data, but it does tell a full story as it relates to the outcomes that we have identified in our strategic plan. Another very important highlight in fiscal responsibilities was, again, work done by numbers of people, Brian and Jeff and Jim, Tom Butcher. We had a bond reissue. As you know, we have and it's still bubbling, the housing crisis with subprime. Well, it hit us, as it did hit with hospitals and other universities here in the state and across the nation. Well, in 45 days, these folks did what would normally have taken 6 months to make sure that we are on a stable platform, and as a result of that, we are. I can assure you that we are on a very stable platform, and that was confirmed by another project that I asked them to engage in, which was to see how our capacity was for future bonding. And the Standard & Poor's have rated us A+ rating in bonding capacity. And so I think we are very stable in that regard. In terms of community development, really enjoy the engagements I have across the campus, especially with our students. We have student leadership here too. Would you stand and rise and be recognized? We have great students here at this university. Our student leadership and our students make me come to work with a smile on my face every single day, because I know that that is the future for this state, for this nation, and our world. In terms of community development, I've shared this with a few groups, and I can share it today. I think there is an understanding of my style, which is a command, what I call a chain of command. You know, I will look at chain of command, but I turn that chain of command on its side, so that you're not just looking at a person in front or behind you, so to speak, but what you're focusing in on is the mission of the university, its purposes and its values as we make decisions. That, to me, is the most healthy way of using a chain of command on its side, everyone taking their individual responsibilities to each other as we set about the great work of this university. And I do think the people understand that now, because everyone is working, in my opinion, so very, very well together. Faculty, staff, with the students, on behalf of the students, with members of the community, with the donors, with the foundation, with so many people who have a stake in Grand Valley State University. Is that someone wanting me? Is it a donor? I'm trying, Mary Beth. Yeah. It could be, yeah, and I'll answer it. I think, though, a couple highlights in this area. Hiring Jean Arnold as our Vice President of Inclusion and Equity is a highlight for me. She's as we say in the Coast Guard, hit deck running, and boy, has she ever, by engaging so many people across all of our communities here at the whole community of Grand Valley State University. And really, with the work of Pat Olt and Nan Reynolds and Marlene, I appreciate their leadership and really pulling this all together for us. And very much looking forward to a project that she's going to be reporting out here pretty soon by looking at the work over the last more than 2 years, because this started well before me. She'll be putting together a strategic plan that's aligned with the Grand Valley strategic plan as well. Another highlight, and it's looking ahead a little bit, but it's the 50th anniversary coming up in 2010 and 11, and Terry Losey is taking that on as an added responsibility. She keeps me out of trouble, which is 110% of her time. And then now this, too, but I appreciate that, plus those other professionals in my office. I appreciate all that they do. But the 50th is really getting going, and I appreciate that. And finally, we are taking a particular leadership role in the health arena. I appreciate all the work that Jean Nagelkirk is doing there, too. Not just looking at Grand Rapids, but our responsibility in the health professions and in nursing and in the whole area of health sciences that cuts across many areas here at Grand Valley State University and all the colleges. I think that she's doing a remarkable job, and there again I'm looking forward to a plan to help us move in the leadership roles that we have in the whole area of health. I appreciate that. My area of service, of course, was here at the university, but it did extend, and one of the highlights for me really or my service to the Higher Learning Commission with the North Central. Said NC, 2 words, North Central. Well, see, in my background, you always want intel. Okay? And since we're going to have our visit, I wanted to be on the other side of the table, so to speak, to see how are we going to be stacking up. And by using these 2 visits that I went on last year, usually I try to go 1 every 2 years. This year they got me for 2, but that was okay because I saw 2 universities that are cohorts in a way to us, and got a lot of good intel that I would share with the board and with Julie and others along the way. Particular project, though, that I'm very, very pleased with, and the results that have already been published, and that's in our strategic plan. Pat Olt, again, did a wonderful job in her last year and a half with me before she moved over to her new roles and responsibilities. But we do have a refreshed plan that the board has approved that has a number of goals and tactics. They reinforced the notion of who we are as a university serving the region and a greater world. They approved the mission to shape. In fact, they reapproved the mission that was actually articulated some years ago. But we did refresh the plan with our mission and our vision and our values. But just to give you a flavor again of those goals, because here this was put together by a very participatory group of people, including alumni and students and members of the foundation and members here at the university. Board member was also on this too. Kate was participating in that. So the goals, and it's on the website, and I think most of you may have a hard copy as well. Take a look at it, especially before the visit that we have coming up in October. But the goals, and this is taken from the report itself: quality undergraduate, student and graduate education, teaching, scholarship, and professional service. Standard, but nonetheless very, very powerful to lead off with that. Quality, undergraduate, student, and graduate student opportunities. Liberal education, which really does distinguish ourselves from many. I was talking to faculty at the development program earlier this week, and it does distinguish us well. It's those broad experiences that help our students succeed. Collaboration. In fact, it's one of our goals, but it's also one of our values too when you think about it. We want to, through our collaborative, what means to enrich society both here on the campus and outside as we engage so many others in the work of educating students for the future service. Inclusion, very, very important. I mentioned time and again that now I believe very fervently that inclusion is more of an active word to the outcome of diversity. Really makes sense to me, okay? Because diversity itself is very much, time and again I repeat, is an intellectual asset and well-founded in our goals. We need to figure out ways then to get there. It's equity and intercultural learning. Culture itself. We do aspire to be a vibrant university and to foster that atmosphere and query. And financial resources, I mentioned that we all have a responsibility. Every single one of us have a responsibility to make sure that we use the tools we have, our time, as effectively as we can. So we want to effectively and efficiently allocate our resources to respond to changing and evolving opportunities. I think that's part of the nature of Grand Valley State University, to be entrepreneurial, to be innovative, as noted this morning in the Free Press. Image, which is a new goal actually from the goals that we had when I first arrived here, but it really is a means to advance our reputation. And boy, I can tell you stories, Marcia and I can tell you stories of our travels, because I will wear my Laker blue wherever I can go. And it really is wonderful, but we do have a goal to, in fact, advance our reputation across this state, across our region, across the nation and the world. And of course, we always need to look at new constituencies. We need to understand our values to our students and to the region, and then bring on people who want to invest in Grand Valley State University, and this will expand involvement and lead to additional support. I mentioned in passing that we are looking really at defining a public university through Grand Valley State University. And what we define ourselves as are, again, in the strategic plan, but I was very, very pleased with the work here again, because it tied in accountability, it tied in outcomes to accountability. Outcomes are desired results. Accountability measures how well you're doing. And so when I define success here at Grand Valley State University, we define the outcomes first. Student success, access and affordability, diversity, partnership with the state, efficiency, a public-private partnership, and our role and responsibility in economic development. That's what defines us. That's a public university, and we'd like to say that loudly so that those who have a stake in here, those in state government, because I do believe in a public-private partnership that needs to be sustainable and rational, but that's how we need to define public higher education as a return on investment. And the accountability, again, on our website, tying that into our accountability report, made a whole strategic plan, in my opinion. Very, very pleased with that. Well, last year, I stood here after one full year on the job, and I said that we needed to look at certain imperatives. And I listed 5, and now these imperatives actually were then embedded into the strategic plan. And this, again, will be out for your read, but we had enrollment management with Chick, or she goes by Chicken in a formal way, with the structure of what's called the Ed Pact. I love it. Acronyms. Enrollment Development Planning and Assessment Committee. And she has put together structures, and she will be, she's already reported out to some leadership here with the Dean's Council, and that'll be coming forward, because that really is, we have to understand how enrollment then drives many of our decisions too, from a strategic way. So that was one of the imperatives I saw, and we're making great progress on that with different models, and we'll report out some more on that. Facilities master planning, we finished off one set of projects, and then I gave James Moyer more gray hair. I said, what about the next 15 years? And he has, with his staff and others, looked at an inventory, completed that, and is looking at the future state. And my modeling is what's called a 1550 model. I want to see what we're going to be stacking up over the next 15 years, looking at programming, look at all the needs, predicting that future. But I want to make sure that we're adaptable enough with the bricks and sticks that we have facilities that will be very effectively used 50 years from now. That's an important concept that I've been through now. This is my 3rd facilities master planning process. I'm, again, pleased with the leadership that James has had. So we'll be setting up some priorities to that this next year. Inclusion and equity, I mentioned the strategic planning work that Gene and others are working on. Broadening the base, fundraising, but really it's the whole development team, I think, that is really doing some great things there, okay? And it's just not the comprehensive campaign. It's all the other work in development, which including annual giving and foundation support, and you can go on. It's really a science when you think about it. And so I'm pleased with the work there, and I already mentioned the comprehensive campaign. And the last one that I would mention under the imperatives was human resources planning. And Scott Richardson and others, and that's really a look ahead to make sure, again, that we are effectively using one of our most important assets, if not the most important asset, is in order to deliver on the promises we have to make sure that our faculty and staff are in place to provide the relevant programs for the future for our students. And that's what we're considering right now. Not really an imperative, but a tasker that I gave to James, and that dealt with policies and procedures. We've grown. We know we've grown. And whenever we do have the Board of Trustees Administrative Manual, but what about parking policy? What about smoking policy? What about all these other policies that we really should get our arms wrapped around? And Donna Marcus and others, Tom and Brian, really have wrapped their arms around this as well. And already I think we have, Tom, it's live now. It's called the Grand Valley Manual. GV Manual, which it's the first outcome of this particular tasker, which I'm very, very happy to see that move along. So, a look ahead. But in order to do that, I really have to step back for a minute. And as you know, we've been in the news. And I do want to start off by saying I appreciate the leadership of our Board of Trustees. In July, we made decisions that were strategic. They were strategic actions that will be able to fulfill our promises to our students in this state. And again, I want to personally and professionally say here, I appreciate that leadership and that support because of two particular items that have been in the news that set the context for looking ahead. Our policy, our board policy on household benefits, and the budget and tuition. I'm so pleased with the work that we were able to do on both of those because it does set the future on such a positive way. So thank you, board members, for that. Decisions at times are tough, but to understand leadership roles, you need to identify the values we operate upon and the reality that we want for the future. And in both of these regards, both in the expanded household benefits, which was strategically aligned with our strategic plan, and the budget and tuition decisions, deal with our responsibilities to each other and for the future. And let me just step back a little bit. We're entrusted to meet the challenges of the state. I think as a public institution, we may say that we don't get enough from the state, and probably that's very true. But we still have a responsibility to the state to meet the challenges of this state, and we take those on as a board, as administration, as the faculty and staff. And one of those is to have what I call more future-oriented educational policy. We need to figure out different ways to ensure that we can achieve the outcomes that I listed before, that we fulfill the promises of Grand Valley State University. And we need to have policies that attract and retain students. And we will be reporting out some numbers on the 29th of this 30th, 1st? Be after Labor Day. The Wednesday after Labor Day. Okay, I just want to make sure that, okay, so Wednesday after Labor Day, we'll know our numbers, but I can tell you this, we're going to do okay. Right? Yes. So numbers look pretty good in terms of incoming freshman numbers and the quality of the freshmen as well. Looking at transfers and the whole enrollment management that we have. We're looking towards about a 1% increase in credit hour count, and I always measure that with a collar of plus or minus 2%. So that's what we're doing. I think we're on track for hitting that. So we need to attract and retain students, and we need to continue to serve our region. And I do know, again, this being in the news, we did go up in percentages by 13.2%. But that wasn't the whole story, because 13.2% is not what students use to pay their bills. It's dollars, and we have kept, with our decisions, the tuition to be $400 to $500 below the average still in the state. In my opinion, and supported by the board, that we could not continue with a almost lowest tuition, but well below the floor funding level from the state, and increasing our need for accessibility with scholarship. We could not sustain that model. So again, it was a very, very bold statement by the board saying that we will balance quality and access and affordability. But again, just to put it in context, I'm a first-generation student, and I appreciate the students and their families in hard economic times. My dad was a New York policeman in New York, had 2 jobs, worked at Singer Sewing Machine as well. When he wasn't working days, he was working nights, and he would do that. So why did he do it? Because he believed in education. He believed in helping my brother and I go to school and then after that, but we didn't have the means. So we looked at ways to do it. But here again, we're trying to keep the student in mind when we look at these decisions. But just as a relative term, for a student who invests 4 years, which may be a tad under $25,000, 4 years of tuition costs, the potential for that investment is $1 million over a lifetime of earnings between a high school degree and a 4-year degree from Grand Valley State University. That $25,000, just in context, is about the same price as a mid-size Chevy. So when I get into talk to some of our state legislators, I say, okay, is a degree from Grand Valley a commodity, or is it a public good? I'm coming on the public good because $1 million of earning power gives us a much better future than looking at the degree as a commodity that loses value. So that's, again, what I tried to encourage us to think through what we're doing here at Grand Valley State University to be effective and efficient in using our students and their investment here to the best of their advantage. But it's not inexpensive, and we want to deliver on the promises. I already mentioned looking ahead with the North Central Association and the imperatives, but there is one I wanted to add to that, a focus on image that goes beyond just integrated marketing, but the whole nature of us as a university, a comprehensive university. And our strategic planning team is going to charge all the colleges and the divisions to refresh their own college and divisional plans so there's alignment with our strategic plan. But the bottom line, looking ahead, we need more educated graduates. We need graduates who are earning their degrees in Michigan and stay in Michigan, and I know that with your help we can realize that dream. Thank you very much, and I'll open up for some questions.